To whom did Jesus say, "Get behind me, Satan"? Peter, Judas Iscariot, Thomas. Peter. He was discouraging Jesus from going to the cross. What did Peter do when Jesus wanted to wash his feet? Agreed immediately, refused at first, then agreed, silently allowed. At first refused, then asked Jesus to wash his hands and head as well. How did Thomas react when he heard about Jesus' resurrection? Rejoiced, believed immediately, demanded proof. Did not believe until he saw and touched Jesus' wounds. What did Mary Magdalene do upon seeing the rolled-away stone from the tomb? Stayed and cried. Ran to Peter and John, went home. Ran to Peter and John, telling them the tomb was empty. How did John react upon hearing from Mary about the empty tomb? Stayed home. Ran with Peter, went alone. Ran with Peter, arrived first but entered after him. What did Peter do at the miraculous catch of fish? Was silent. Fell at Jesus' feet, counted the fish. Fell at Jesus' feet, acknowledging himself a sinner. Who were called sons of thunder? Peter and Andrew, James and John, Philip and Thomas. James and John, for their passionate and fiery nature. Why did Andrew say, "We have found the Messiah"? He recognized Jesus from John the Baptist. He saw Jesus' miracle at the wedding. He heard Peter's preaching. Andrew brought his brother Peter to Jesus. What did Judas Iscariot do after realizing his betrayal? Prayed, returned the silver coins, ran away. Returned 30 silver coins and hanged himself. What did Peter do when he saw Jesus walking on water? Got out of the boat, stayed in the boat, swam. Got out and walked on the water but began to sink in fear. How did Peter react to Jesus' arrest in Gethsemane? Hid. Cut off the ear of Malchus, ran away. Cut off the ear of Malchus. Who said, "Show us the Father"? Thomas, Philip, James. Philip asked Jesus to show the Father. What did John do at Jesus' cross? Stood with Jesus' mother, hid, cried from afar. Stood with Mary, accepting her as his own mother. Why did Nathanael believe Jesus was the Messiah? Jesus saw him under the fig tree. Philip told him about miracles. John the Baptist blessed him. Jesus revealed knowledge of him under the fig tree. What did Nathanael say about Nazareth? No prophet comes from there. Can anything good come from there? That is a holy city. He doubted anything good could come from Nazareth. Who was a tax collector before being called? Matthew, Luke, Thaddeus. Matthew sat collecting taxes. Who wanted to call down fire on the Samaritans? James and John, Peter and Andrew, Thomas and Philip. James and John asked to call down fire. What did Peter do with Aeneas and Lydda? Healed him, fed him, preached to him. Healed the paralyzed Aeneas in Jesus' name. Who raised Tabitha, Dorcas, in Joppa? Peter, John, Andrew. Peter raised Tabitha by prayer. How did Peter learn the gospel was for the Gentiles? Vision of clean and unclean animals, words of Jesus, from Paul. Through the vision of clean and unclean animals. Why was John called the beloved disciple? Poured oil on Jesus' head, sold all and gave to poor, referred to himself that way. Referred to himself that way. Why did Peter ask Jesus, Lord, to whom shall we go? Jesus drove them away, asked if they'd leave like others, gave mission to go to Jerusalem. It was in response to Jesus' question if they would leave. Why did Jesus ask Peter 3 times, do you love me? Jesus did not hear the answer. Peter denied Jesus 3 times. Peter didn't understand the question. It reflected Peter's 3 denials before the crucifixion. What was unclear to Nicodemus during the night conversation with Jesus? How to be born again. How to live without sin. How to rise after death. He was confused about how to be born again of the Spirit. What did Nicodemus do after Jesus' crucifixion? Hid. Brought about 100 pounds of myrrh and aloe. Cried in the temple. Brought about 100 pounds of myrrh and aloe for burial. Who gave Jesus a tomb? Joseph of Arimathea, Simon of Cyrene, Nicodemus. Joseph of Arimathea gave his new tomb in the garden. Why did Zacchaeus climb a tree when Jesus passed by? To hide from the crowd, because he was short and wanted to see better, to scare Jesus' disciples. Zacchaeus, a tax collector, climbed because of his short stature. What did Zacchaeus promise after meeting Jesus? To stop sinning, to give half his possessions to the poor, to change profession. Promised to give half his possessions to the poor. Who was Lazarus, resurrected by Jesus? A close friend of Jesus, a teacher and mentor of the apostles, a rival among religious leaders. Lazarus was Jesus' friend, resurrected after 4 days. Why did Mary sit at Jesus' feet when he came to their home? To listen to his teaching, to serve food and drinks, to ask for healing for her sister. Mary sat at his feet, showing deep faith and love. What did Martha say when Jesus said her brother would rise? Believed in resurrection at last day. Doubted and asked him to leave. She was silent. Martha acknowledged resurrection is possible on the last day. What did Peter do after denying Jesus 3 times? Went home. Wept bitterly, asked for forgiveness. went out and wept bitterly. Why did Peter suggest choosing a new apostle after Jesus' ascension? Some disciples were excluded. Judas Iscariot hanged himself. They needed a backup apostle. Judas died and the place needed to be filled. Who was chosen instead of Judas Iscariot? Barnabas, Matthias, Silas. Matthias became the 12th apostle. What did the disciples hear from heaven on the Mount of Transfiguration? This is my beloved Son. Listen to him. The prophets Moses and Elijah. Honor them. I am the one who is. This is my beloved Son. Listen to him. Why did Jesus prepare grilled fish on the shore for the disciples after resurrection? To show he was physically alive, to feed the disciples before the journey, to celebrate Passover together. To prove to the disciples he was resurrected in body. What did Peter do upon seeing the risen Jesus on the shore? Walked on water, jumped into the sea, stayed in the boat. Jumped into the sea and swam to Jesus. What did Mary Magdalene do when Jesus called her by name near the tomb? Ran away, recognized him, started singing. Recognized Jesus and called him Rabboni. Who was killed by the sword by order of Herod Agrippa I? Peter, James, brother of John, Andrew. James, brother of John, was executed by sword. What did Jesus say to Peter about his death? You will die of old age naturally. You will suffer a martyr's death. You will live to see my return. Peter would suffer martyrdom glorifying God. Why did Philip run after the eunuch's chariot? To explain the scriptures to him, to ask for food and water, to invite him to prayer. Philip ran to explain the scriptures. How did Peter escape from prison? Friends helped him escape. Peter bribed the guards. An angel of God miraculously freed him. An angel appeared and led Peter out miraculously. What did Peter and John see in Jesus' tomb? Jesus' body and 3 angels, empty tomb and burial cloths. Other disciples who arrived earlier. They saw an empty tomb and burial cloths, evidence of resurrection. What did the disciples do after Jesus' ascension? Went home, returned to Jerusalem, went fishing on the lake. Returned to Jerusalem and stayed in prayer. Why was Thomas called the twin? He had a twin brother. His second name was Didymus, meaning twin. He always walked with a double. Thomas's nickname was Didymus, Greek for twin. Why is Nathanael associated with Cana of Galilee? He was born there. He first met Peter there. His baptism took place in Cana. Nathanael was from Cana of Galilee. What did Andrew do at the feeding of the 5,000? Found a boy with bread, distributed the bread, prayed. Brought the boy with 5 loaves and 2 fish. What was the name of the follower who met Jesus on the road to Emmaus? James the Younger, Cleopas, Saul. Cleopas was on the road to Emmaus and met Jesus. What did Peter do with the coin he took from the mouth of the fish? Bought food. Used it to pay the temple tax. Kept it for himself. He pays the temple tax, as Jesus instructed him. Was Peter married? Yes. No. Unknown. Peter was married because Jesus healed his mother-in-law.
Choose your next challenge by clicking on one of the videos.